Hello everyone, I'm Lindsay from International iCatCare. Earlier today you heard from Harry, who told a really powerful story. Imagine walking by a river and seeing a cat floating downstream. You jump in to save it, and then another appears, and another, until you're pulling out cats all day long. Then one person climbs out of the river and says, I'm going to go upstream to find out who's throwing them in the first place. Harry's point was that most of us who work in cat welfare spend our time downstream, rescuing, treating, and homing, when what we also need is people working upstream, tackling the causes so fewer cats end up in the river in the first place. It's an image that really stays with you because we all know that feeling of working tirelessly and perhaps even doing more each year than we did before. But the number of cats that need our help seems to only increase. And so much of that work is urgent and critical. Those cats need us. But as Harry said, someone has to climb the bank and look upstream to understand why those cats are ending up there in the first place. And that's what upstream work is really all about, prevention. Now, it's important to acknowledge that this isn't about abandoning the cats in front of us that need our help. There will always be cats that fall in accidentally and really do need our attention right now. So there will always be a need for people working downstream, meeting those urgent needs. But if some of us, and more importantly, some of our resources don't also go upstream, the flow will never stop. Now, one of the challenges with upstream work is that it can feel less satisfying. Downstream, one can see instant results. A cat life saved. And we can personally get quite a lot from that, and it can feel very fulfilling. Upstream, success really looks like nothing happened at all. So fewer kittens being born on the street, fewer admissions next year. It really takes patience, planning, and data to prove that it's working. And one of the most powerful upstream tools we have is TNR, Trap, Neuter, Return, or TNVR as it's sometimes called, which adds vaccinate, the critical component to help prevent infectious diseases in cats. And when TNVR is strategic and well-resourced, it really can stabilize and eventually reduce cat populations. But it only works at a population level when it's planned, monitored, and measured, so we know whether it's truly making a difference. And if TNVR happens piecemeal, a few cats here or there when our funding or capacity allows, it's very well-intentioned, and it certainly helps those individual cats. But the wider population doesn't change, or in other words, it doesn't do anything towards solving the problems upstream. But strategic and effective TNVR is how we can stop those cats entering the river in the first place. And strategic TNVR includes identifying very specific target cat populations, surveying or counting the cats, focusing efforts to reach very high neutering rates quickly, which we sometimes refer to as front loading, working hand in hand with the community so cats are cared for and new arrivals are also neutered so that the progress is maintained, and of course monitoring progress with data so we know what's working. And now you also heard from Jenny McDonald earlier and her story of the lovely cat named Mac. And Mac moved through every part of the system. Mac was once a pet, and then a stray, and then cared for in the community, and then homed again as a pet. And Mac's journey shows how deeply interconnected our work really is. What happens in one part of the population ripples into another. Jenny also reminded us that a balanced cat population isn't about chasing a perfect number. It's about cats living in balance with the people, the other animals, and the environment around them. This is where our cat-shaped jigsaw comes in, which is a picture of how those pieces fit together. We've got the pet owners who neuter at 4 months, microchip, and seek help rather than abandoning their cats. We have the homing organizations who neuter before adoption, find suitable homes quickly, and prevent abandonment through community engagement. We have the veterinary clinics who plan capacity for neutering, collaborate with welfare groups, and encourage early neutering for unowned cats. And of course, the TNVR groups or the community cat programs that neuter the unowned cats. Now, to make sustained progress at stopping the problems upstream, all 4 pieces of the puzzle need to be in place. And worth noting is we need many other stakeholders involved too, like local and national government and certainly funders. And when each piece of the puzzle is doing their part, we can create the conditions where cats thrive. And just as importantly, where the people helping them and doing this work can thrive too. So when you see a cat in front of you, try asking yourself not just, what does this cat need from me right now? But why is this cat here? Because it isn't inevitable. Each cat story tells us something about the system, and crucially, where we can add value to change that story from endless crisis to sustainable progress. And that's where you come in. Each one of you, whether you're rescuing, fostering, trapping, neutering, educating, or advising, plays a part in that bigger picture. So thank you for all that you do for cats, whatever contribution you make. And now, to bring some of this to life, let's hear from Adele Goodman, joining us from Greece with some brilliant tips and tricks for the cat trapping process, helping you take this upstream work from theory into action.
Hi there, I'm Adele. I am a trapper and a cat population management program manager. I currently work in Athens, Greece, and today I'm going to show you how we use the drop trap, as well as a bit of feline behavior knowledge in our methodologies. Something important we incorporate into our TNR is surveying. So that means mapping colonies, counting cats, and coordinating with feeders. I'm looking for cat bowls and cat houses to tell me a colony's there, and then I'm working with the feeder to make sure they have a feeding routine to make sure our trapping is optimal. This is the drop trap. This is a trap from the US. It's made by Tomahawk. It's a very big, heavy, noisy trap, so that's why it's really important that when we're setting it up, we are mindful about the space we're occupying in the cat's colony. It's really important that when I am coming in and setting up my equipment, I'm not scaring them away, and I'm paying attention to their behavior so that I can figure out how best to trap them. One big trick with the drop trap is to make sure the food is all the way at the back. We don't want the side of the trap to be coming down on somebody's tail and causing an injury. We operate with the do no harm principle. Drop traps are really good for trapping multiple cats or difficult cats, and in this situation I have 2 cats I want to catch. Now, I've made a core mistake here which I want to show you guys because it's really important to make sure we're doing this properly. You can see the trap is sideways, and that means I'm not going to be able to pull the string out straight in front of me, and that means there's going to be some complications. So watch what happens. They were alerted by the sound of the trap coming down. One of them escaped. We're going to fix that next time. Obviously, the first thing we do is run over and cover the trap. We don't want the cat stressed and causing injury to themselves. We also want to make sure we're using really good quality equipment. So here we're using MDC equipment, which is from the UK. Now, we've corrected our mistake. The trap is facing us, and we're going to be able to get a nice straight pull. I want you to pay attention to our body language here. It's really important that we are acknowledging how sensitive and perceptive these animals are when we're working with them. Notice my body positioning. I'm not facing front. I'm trying to be non-threatening. I'm not looking them in the eye and making eye contact. If I could hide, I would, but I cannot in this situation. I'm waiting until their tail is all the way underneath the trap before I pull it. And that means that their tail is safe. I run over, I cover them immediately, and as soon as I can do a nice calm transfer into an appropriate cage, I do. Obviously, we keep them covered for transport, and we're as gentle as possible. When we're identifying cats who need to be sterilized, we are using a full circle TNR approach and a colony level targeting approach. That means this whole family of mom and her 3 little kittens are all getting sterilized. You can see these guys are at least 4 months old, their testicles are there, and they're ready to be neutered. this little one as well, they've all been added to a schedule to be spayed and neutered. And we've made sure that the feeder has given us information about the colony. Even though we've sterilized mostly everybody already, we're coming back and we're making sure we are sterilizing every single cat left in this colony so that nobody is left behind. Without including the follow-up and the monitoring for the colonies that we're working with and relationship with the feeders, we're not going to be able to finish these colonies, and therefore our work is not going to be as strategic or efficient as it could be. A lot of people also will focus on sterilizing female cats rather than males, and you can see in this case, this means we end up with intact male cats who are sick and a risk to themselves and the rest of the colony, so we sterilize everybody. We also make sure that we're pre-identifying the cats we want to sterilize in a session. So in this case, this black and white female has had kittens about a month ago, and now they're weaned, and so she is ready to be spayed. She really does not like this intact male cat. He's also a target for today because he's a big problem in the neighborhood. Once again, as we're setting up our equipment, we're paying attention, we're noticing them. I already know that she doesn't like him, she doesn't want to be around him, and so I'm not going to be able to trap these two cats together, and so there's no point waiting for both of them to be under the trap. One thing I always double check for is ear tips and testicles. I want to make sure this cat has not been sterilized already, and if I'm unsure, it is okay to take a second and double check. Now, I want to prioritize the female in this case because he's more bold and she's more shy, and I think I'm going to have less chances with her. So I'm going to let him eat a little bit and see if she's going to come out after. And she is. She's waiting for him to leave. So I've got a lot of information just by paying attention to them and taking a second to really absorb everything that's going on with their social dynamics. She's obviously still a bit wary of him, so I think as soon as I have an opportunity, I'm going to trap her because I don't want her to make a run for it. She's obviously a bit nervous, she's not really sure what she wants to do, but in a second she's going to go under there, and I'm going to take my opportunity as soon as that tail is safely under to catch her. Now, luckily our big guy is still here, so we're going to take our chance to trap him as well. We've got another little complication. This guy, who has already been sterilized, is trying to be retrapped and eat his food. So I'm going to gently encourage him away without scaring our target cat. And I'm just going to give him a bit of space. Once he's under there, you'll see we have our blankets to the left ready to make sure we cover him immediately. Once again, it's really important that we are not causing harm to these guys. It's really stressful what they're going through, and we're doing this as cat welfare specialists. This is not a sport, this is not a game, we are not hunters, we are trying to do the absolute best for them, and that means when we're transferring and trapping, we're not intimidating them, we're not scaring them, we're really giving them their space to kind of take the lead, and we just kind of follow what they want to do and how they want to be trapped. I want to make sure I'm keeping him covered all the time. I want to make sure I'm not poking him or scaring him to go into the box. I want to make sure that he does it on his own terms, and I keep him covered to keep him as calm as possible throughout the whole thing. I also want to make sure I'm securing the equipment, so we always zip tie the cages to make sure there's no plausible chance of somebody escaping somewhere they don't belong, and they get returned to where they know. We hope this has been helpful. We think the drop trap can be a really great tool when used correctly to help with that strategic trapping and getting those difficult to catch last cats of the colony. Good luck.
Lindsay reminds us that we are all responsible for the solution to cat overpopulation. Something for us all to think about. Sometimes bigger picture thinking is tough, so it was good to take time out to spend with Adele, who gave us some really useful tips about the practical aspects of trapping and how to do so while ensuring good welfare for the cats. Will you do anything differently tomorrow after watching Adele? If you aren't actively involved in TNR, think about the role it plays in your community. Is it being done strategically? Is it having an impact on the population? Take a moment to reflect.
Well, a huge welcome back. I hope you've got something really good out of watching those videos brilliant videos that we've just had. So we're back in the studio for the last panel discussion of this afternoon. So we're going to be talking about vet perspectives on neutering in TNR, trap neuter return and community cat programs. So really going to be thinking about the vet side of things, but it's a team effort. So we're going to bring everyone in when we're considering those things as well. So in this panel discussion, we don't have any specific time to really go to questions. We'll see how we get on, but please, that doesn't mean, please engage with us, please post on the chat so that we can see what sorts of things you're thinking about, what things do you need to know, what things can we help you with, so that we can really get an essence of that. And as I've said earlier, we're committed to coming back to you on those via the Unowned Cat Community email newsletter. So please do engage with us. Back to the panel. So I've again joined by some brilliant people in the studio. We've got some great people on Zoom as well. So in the studio, I am joined by Joe from the RSPCA up north. So thank you for coming, Joe. Ursula, you've already been on a panel, so hopefully familiar. And Alex, wonderful vet nurse from iCatCare, because it's really important when we're talking about the vet perspectives, we really remember how incredibly essential our vet nurses are, vet techs in all of that as well. So that's great. And then on Zoom, we have Anne Enright. So I hope you're there, Anne, all the way from Australia. You can hear, that's brilliant. All the way from Australia. So again, I dread to think what time it is for you, but a huge thank you for joining us. And then again, a long way away, but a face that's familiar to a lot of you, I'm sure, we've got Nat back as well. So hi, Nat, are you there? You can hear me? Brilliant. Excellent. Okay. So what we're going to be doing in this session is just thinking about the vet perspectives on cat population management, and really, as you watched in that video that Lindsay gave us about that sort of jigsaw puzzle, that we all play a role in this, whether we're the cat owner, the veterinary team, the TNR groups, the homing organisations, we've all got a part to play. But we're really going to try and think about how we can work better with vets, and it's a bi-directional thing with lots of people involved. So we're going to sort of really try and think about that aspect in the next sort of 35 minutes or so. So the first question that I have is for Anne. So I'm going to start with you, Anne, if that's okay. So you've had an amazing career as a shelter vet. What's been your biggest challenge, would you say, in terms of your years of experience?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm not sure whether I should be saying good morning or good afternoon or whatever. But yeah, the greatest challenge I think that I've had working as a shelter vet, honestly, it has to be, I think, most recently, the lack of financial support and the rising costs across the board. I mean, we're all trying to do more with less. Like, there's less funding, there's fewer staff, there's, the supplies are just getting more expensive. And it doesn't just really impact the shelters, it also flows into the wider community, where many people are struggling to afford basic vet care or even the more important services such as desexing. And then leading on from that, I mean, cat welfare, it doesn't just sit on the shoulders of the vets or the shelters, it's shared between animal management, government and owners as well. And I think for me, the key is focusing on appropriate care or providing staggered treatments. By that I mean staging treatments and not just going in and completing all of the tests and so forth up front. It's not about cutting corners. It's about using your knowledge and your skills to focus on what's realistic and what will provide good welfare in each situation. Now, in a shelter, we often aren't able to do gold standard treatments or best practice treatments, but we can still make a real difference, through practical, compassionate care and teamwork. And I think that's really important, and you can actually really achieve a lot of good outcomes by adopting that practice.
Thank you. And I think it's really important to think, you just mentioned gold standard there as well and best practice, because actually that as a term, what we can do in that shelter environment for that cat in that situation could absolutely be it's the best appropriate care. So I think sometimes we can beat ourselves up about maybe not doing X, Y and Z, but if that might not be the best thing for the cat, and if owners can't afford it, then it's definitely not the best. You can't do it at all. So I think it's really good point to think about that staging and making it accessible, and not feeling bad about that as well. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, sure.
Thank you. I'm going to move to Nat now. So hi, Nat. Just in terms of just thinking about shelter work, because obviously some big shelters, big organisations will have their own shelter vets working sort of 24 hours sometimes, but a lot of the shelter work is actually done by vets in private practice, dealing with owned cats in a private practice setting. So there's a need to flip, isn't there, between sort of owned cats within a private sector and then a shelter situation where we might be dealing with more than an individual. Could you share your perspectives on how easy or not it is to flip between those two scenarios?
Yeah, it can be a little bit tricky. Mentally, it requires different steps to be made sometimes. I do think in many ways it is something we are doing better now as a profession. And I think it's probably why myself as a vet that's worked both in private practice but also in shelters, I really embrace contextualised care and the concepts that we're trying to introduce with that, because that works no matter what the context of the scenario is. It takes into account the own situation of the animal, whether you've got an owner paying the bills or a charity or rescue, but it also takes into account what's right for that animal as an individual as well. And ultimately, it means regardless of those situations, regardless of financial pressures, regardless of whether we're talking about an owned friendly cat, whether we're talking about maybe more of an in-betweener cat where certain types of treatment may be challenging, it means ultimately we're able to make decisions that are going to give the best welfare outcomes for that particular individual. And these are concepts that we are really working as a profession to introduce early. A lot of universities are starting to introduce contextualised care or spectrum of care into their training resources, but also wider within the profession as well. A lot of our professional associations are introducing these sort of topics too. It is an interesting one, and definitely in my experience, probably the times that it's been most challenging is when you've been working one-on-one with someone that's almost got an ownership type relationship with the animal, but actually maybe they're more of a fosterer or they're a staff member of the charity that has just sort of formed more of an emotional bond with this particular individual. And definitely in those circumstances, it does get a little bit blurred in terms of what that relationship really is. And it is important that us as veterinary professionals are always just sort of reflecting back on who this cat is, what the situation this cat is currently living in, and making sure that we're still contextualising our care to what's appropriate for that animal as an individual.
Yeah, thanks, Nat. And I think you bring up a good point, because I think traditionally we talk about contextualised care. It's maybe thought about the financial in isolation, and I think now we're getting better at thinking about that contextualised care. It's not just about the finances; it's about the the context of the client, of the owner, of the cat, etc. So yeah, really good points, and I think it's great. I think vet schools are certainly talking about that now, and we're incorporating it into teaching, which is really important. So thank you. So I'm going to move over from vets to vet nurses. So hi, Alex. Just in terms of it's really great that you're there, because it is a team approach that we've got for all of this. So fab to have you with us. Vet nurses can do lots of things in terms of helping with shelters, unowned cats, TNR, etc. What would you say, based on your experience, are the biggest challenges for vet nurses or vet techs?
It's a good question. I think it can be challenging for veterinary nurses and techs because we are so caring in our nature. We are our patient advocates. Yeah. And we may be in certain situations where we feel, okay, if it was up to me or if it was my pet, I might do things differently. With this cat, we might do more diagnostic tests, or we might do surgery. But unfortunately, it can almost cause a bit of sort of moral distress because we don't have the funds to pay for that in that scenario. But that doesn't mean that you can't make a difference with that animal. There's still going to be something that you can do, whether that's caring for that cat in a hospital environment, advising feeders or caregivers of those cats on, how to look after them or give them medication and that kind of thing, or just being involved in these kind of TNR programs. There's always going to be something you can do that's going to have a positive sort of welfare outcome for that cat. I know that earlier we were talking about pregnant spays.
Yeah.
And that can be, in my experience, that can be a really difficult thing for veterinary nurses to deal with in clinical practice. I know certainly I've struggled with that myself before, especially if that mother cat is kind of almost full term. But it's really about looking at the bigger picture, and we were talking about contextualised care as well. But I'm thinking about, okay, if this mother cat, this queen, was allowed to have those kittens, what are their chances of survival? We know in some areas that kitten mortality rates are really high. If that queen was taken on and looked after in a shelter environment, how well would she do? How stressed would she be? What impact would that have on the kittens? How are they going to develop behaviourally if they've been subjected to prenatal stress and they're in that environment where really these cats are unowned cats that are not used to being around people? And this can cause problems sort of ongoing, because then that if they end up in a home that is not suitable for that particular cat, they can develop behaviour problems, and then sometimes they end up back at the shelter. So it's really about looking at that bigger picture. And I think sometimes when you've got a cat right in front of you, it can be quite difficult to do that. Yeah, it can be a real challenge.
You brought a really good point, and actually, I think it was Melanie that we didn't get to her question in the last panel, was actually talking about the stress of the mum and the kittens, and it is
stress.
Yeah, and I think some of what we talked about earlier with euthanasia, it's that sort of team proactive discussion, so that the nurse doesn't feel alone in some of that, some of that guilt. And
I was talking to one of my colleagues actually that she worked in a clinic where they did lots of pregnant spays, and she said it would have been really helpful if they had a protocol at that clinic that was agreed with the charity that they were working with, so that they knew this is what we do, but also it just takes that little bit of pressure off of the veterinary team having to make that decision.
Absolutely.
With no sort of guidance.
Yeah, again, it's just from it's going from reactive to proactive, isn't it, to
absolutely.
make it? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so moving back to the vet side of things, Jo, you work in a really busy RSPCA hospital in the north of England. So just love that, you're doing a lot of work, a lot of clinical work, lots of vets and vet nurses that you have in your team. What are the biggest challenges that you face, but also have you got any ways of overcoming those challenges as well?
Yeah, so the biggest challenges, one of the biggest challenges that we see is actually the level of infectious diseases, really like panleukopenia. There's a lot of it in our area. And then another sort of challenge is ensuring that new staff and vets actually understand how to recognise it quickly, because it's not something they would necessarily have been familiar with in private practice at all. And really sort of ways that we overcome them is trying to get to know our local community. So we keep records of postcodes of areas that we know are particularly high levels of panleukopenia. And then, as Nat mentioned, we've developed proactive protocols to help us deal with the cases that are diagnosed either at intake or within the animal centre. And we also have a lot of vet discussions to help with the new vets too, so they can recognise the disease and things. And then one of the things that we also work on is to try and keep the community cat population healthy. So when we work with, when we do trap, neuter and release programs, we try to take that holistic approach. It's not just about the neutering, but it's about vaccinating that population as well, parasite control, keeping that sort of whole population as healthy as we can, really. And then we also work collaboratively with other charities. So where we have strengths in the surgery and the technical side, but actually we don't have much skills and experience on the actual trapping in the field side. So we've collaborated with other charities to do that part, and so we can focus on the parts that we're good at. So,
and that's come up as a theme, hasn't it, today, just in terms of sort of dividing up, but not everyone's trying to do a bit of everything, but trying to sort of focus in. No, absolutely. And there's have a look at some of the videos if you've not seen them already, because just learning so much today really about what everyone is doing to contribute. So thank you. I'd not thought, because there is a sort of from the infectious disease side of things that people aren't seeing in their area, and then that flipping that we were talking to Nat about is so big, isn't it? Yeah. But there are lots of tools out there, aren't there? And that communication and education is there, so that you can be helped with that. Brilliant. Anybody else any comments on that? No? Good. Nat, were you going to come in there? No, sorry, I'm sort of seeing you move. You've got to stay really still, otherwise I'm going to... no, brilliant. So we'll move on to Ursula, just in terms of... Now, we've touched upon this subject already, but I'd love to sort of just probe it a little bit more. Just in terms of iCatCare is doing some work that I'm sure you, supported by Battersea, looking at cat population management in a few countries as pilots to see what are the challenges and how can we overcome them. And one of the things that has come out of some of those sort of conversations that Harry's had, actually, that was in my chair just a little bit earlier, is really trying to get trying to get private vets to be able to do that low-cost neutering when we've not got shelters that are doing it sort of directly. And there are a few little videos and things that we've got today that talk a little bit about that, but I'd love to hear your perspectives on that in terms of what are the sorts of things we can do to try and encourage that to happen, and what are the barriers that we can overcome.
Yeah, I think it's a very complex topic which has many aspects to it, but I think because sometimes it can be seen sort of private vets or local vets that just do the trap, neuter, release, or maybe sometimes even volunteer vets, and not to see that as a competition really. So it's I think it comes back to what we have been talking about throughout the day, really, that it's important to have that conversation, and what Nat said as well, sort of to be on one side the trap, neuter, release veterinarian, and then on the other side the one who also looks after the owned cats. And if you've been working with unowned population, you will know that there's always one that has something going on with it that isn't fit for surgery, maybe for neutering, but has something else going on, and should that then be treated, or should that go to a private vet or to the trap, neuter, release vet? And I think it's important to make sure that the communication is clear. Who is doing what? What can the vet do who is in the trap, neuter, release program, and what can then go to the local vet or should be referred to? And I think it's important to have a very clear outline for all sides involved, really, who's doing what, and not to compete, but just to collaborate with each other. Yeah.
And how much do you think it's about communication as well? Because I think sometimes there's a little bit of a them and us feeling, and maybe some, I don't know, have you got any experience of that?
Definitely. And I think sometimes it's almost too scary to talk about it, so we just try not to talk about it. I think a lot of us might feel that, I don't want to compete, and I don't want to take the work away, but I think if we look for the open conversation and say, these cats out there, they would never be neutered, they would never see a vet unless the charity is doing that, or the charity vet is neutering them. And so it's not a competition with a private vet, and I think it's important to outline that and to seek out that conversation. We shy away from it because we think it's going to go wrong, But I think if we say, we want to talk with you and we work with you, and we want to recommend you, because some cats will be in foster cares and then they will be rehomed, and then there is an opening there to communicate with the private veterinarian to then look after those cats as well. So I think there's also an opportunity there to collaborate and maybe if you want to say it, gain business rather than losing business by collaborating, and really just making that step of approaching them rather than trying not to, because it might not go well.
No, absolutely. And we've heard some figures, you know, today about how much neutering has been done in some, which I hadn't realised. So it is, absolutely, some conversations is really important. Fantastic, thank you for that. I'm going to move to Nat now. Just in terms of, you've got so much experience, Nat, so really happy to have you with us in terms of advice for vet clinics and organisations running TNR projects. What are your tips and tricks on how we get them to do those projects smoothly, efficiently, satisfactorily? What's your experience there?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, and actually it's quite a few of the things that have already sort of come up in discussion. You know, as Jo mentioned, these populations of cats are sometimes a little bit different from what you're used to seeing in an average vet clinic. And as Ursula mentioned, sometimes when these trapped cats are presented to you, there is some health concerns that may be apparent pre-giving them an anaesthetic for neutering, but may become apparent once they're under anaesthetic and you're able to do a good thorough examination. A lot of it really does come back to really good, clear communication up front, ideally before you really start this relationship. You know, the fancy speak would be a service level agreement, but essentially having that sort of time and discussion about what it is that the charity is looking for, the expected volume of cats, maybe the days and times that they're going to be trapping, so you know at least roughly what that kind of flow will be in terms of animals presenting for you. But also having a really good discussion about the circumstances of what's going on, the kind of common things that you do find when you're examining these animals prior to neutering them, and what the sort of expected outcomes are from those. You know, what happens if there's dental disease, what's acceptable to be done maybe at the same time of that general anaesthetic, what is perhaps not acceptable, what is going to be causing continued pain and poor welfare for the individuals, what can be addressed and they're suitable to then go back out again, what are sort of some of the conditions that means actually we might be needing to talk about a euthanasia decision while they're under the anaesthetic. If that's the case, who do we need to be talking to? Do we have a protocol that X, Y, and Z occurs and we are allowed to euthanize them and let the charity know afterwards? Do we always have to contact a person? As we talked about earlier, do the feeders need to be involved in some of these discussions? Or are they aware of the protocols and what some outcomes may be? Are we going to be testing for retroviruses? You know, there's a giant big list of things that actually, so long as we get a really clear agreement, try and work through some of these scenarios and decide what the outcomes are going to be before we're faced with that scenario, that does tend to make the process run a lot longer, a lot more smoothly. We've all definitely been in the situation, I think, where we've had an animal under anaesthesia, we've uncovered something, we know it's not going to be suitable for that animal's welfare to be neutered and woken up and returned back to the situation that they're living in. But we also know that this is an animal that isn't going to be able to live in a confined environment in a foster home or in a shelter, even temporarily. So it's important that we have agreement on all of these things up front, and make that part of the initial relationship build, get these protocols in place, and then definitely things do run a lot more smoothly after that.
Brilliant, Nat. And just on that, I mean, is that for somebody sort of starting out that's sort of thinking, right, I'm going to start being proactive, we're going to try and get some protocols together, where would people advise people to go to sort of try and start that process? Are there any sort of helpful toolkits or anything like that?
I can jump in there.
Yeah, do you want me to take that one? Or?
I'll go to Jo first and then come back to you.
So even though obviously I work for the RSPCA, I would actually advocate Cats Protection. They do excellent toolkits about setting up a TNR programme, feral cat guides, things like that, and we use their resources as well, and that's who we work with as well. So that's the real sort of partnership working. It's not just one organisation. I would definitely say they've got really good online resources.
Yeah. Brilliant. And Nat, over to you.
Yeah. I was going to add to that as well. Internationally, I always look at UC Davis, the Karat Shelter Medicine resources. They have great stuff. University of Florida has really good stuff as well. And Stacey, who was one of our panelists earlier in her Community Cat podcast, have some fantastic resources and recorded interviews with people that, again, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of resources as well there. So there's lots of different places to find, really good quality resources to work out how it is that you maybe want to do TNR in your particular area.
Brilliant, yeah, to adapt
Also,
as well. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Also, the ASPCA in the US, they have some amazing stuff as well.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, we'll try and make sure we've got some of those resources written out in the chat somewhere. I'm hoping somebody behind the scenes will be able to put some links to those as well. So, so it's just people aren't alone. There's starting points for those conversations is really important. Thank you. So I'll stay with you, Anne, if that's okay. Just you mentioned, challenge of resources, etc. Earlier, and just really aware of where you work in Australia. That there's quite, you're dealing with quite a lot of restrictions and rules and regulations in Victoria, where that's enabled you to not do things that otherwise you'd want to do. So just to sort of give us a flavour of that, can you give us some examples of things that you've not been able to do, but actually how you've managed to overcome some of those restrictions in order to be able to sort of affect your shelter medicine positively?
Yeah, that's a really good point and a really important point, because for us it's a really complicated area, because the laws here in Victoria, they're quite different for that of many other countries. Like, for example, and I've heard it mentioned quite a lot over the, recent few minutes here, but you've got trap, neuter, vaccinate, return programs, or you might call it just simply like TNR programs. We actually can't do that in Victoria or Australia. It's actually illegal. So we can be really quite restricted. And if you're looking at basically from a legal perspective, you've really got three options. So if a cat is trapped, basically your options are that it has to be reunited with its owner, it has to be rehomed, or it usually will end up in a shelter or a pound. And often if they're off the street and they're not familiar with, they're not a socialised sort of a cat, then they usually end up being euthanized. There's no middle ground. There's no other options. We don't have community cat programs like they do overseas. We don't have colony cats and so forth. They're illegal. I mean, they exist, but they're not meant to. And it's a really frustrating situation for people in shelters and the councils and the public who just really want to help. But with all of that, I mean, there are still things that we can do. There's, where there's a will, there's a way. There's a way to find an avenue to do lots of things. But one of the things that I've always been talking about, I've been banging on about it for years, is the shelter diversion strategies. It's a concept which is absolutely my most favourite thing to do when I'm working in a shelter. I absolutely love working on creating shelter diversion strategies, and how they are for a local area or a community, that they will be different from one part of the community or world or even the city where you are, and so the situations will change, but I absolutely love doing it. But I suppose if I had to give you, and I've got a list here of about top 6 things that I find have worked really well in my favour, and I'd have to put on the top of the list early age desexing. And I like to desex cats and kittens at about 800 grams to a kilo. So that's sort of somewhere between 8 to 10 weeks of age. So you're really getting into it before there's an issue. Establishing low-cost that's a mouthful, low-cost clinics or community clinics. They're really helpful in helping people afford services. We do a lot of microchipping drives or campaigns, so we'll work with councils or other organisations and we'll do free microchipping, and that helps you improve your return to owner rates. providing surrender prevention support, so particularly regarding behaviour problems or things like food pantries, just to help people keep their pet in their home rather than, you know, be in a position where they have to either abandon it or surrender it or whatever. Having really good foster care programs in place, particularly for kittens, because that keeps them out of the shelters where they're most vulnerable. And I suppose the last thing I'd mention is community education, especially regarding the importance of desexing. And that's also a tricky area, like particularly multicultural areas, because you've got all the different cultural aspects too that can impact upon what people think about desexing their pets and when they should be desexed and should they have a litter and should they not, and all these sorts of things. So community education is, I think, a really strong thing that can get you a long way. These approaches, you know, all these sorts of approaches, they help us keep the cats out of shelters, they help us reduce unwanted litters, and they can make a real difference. So even within the legal limits that we have, we can still make a real big impact.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a good long list to do, as you're saying, with them. And quite a lot of those things, even though there's challenges in your state, are applicable all over the world, aren't they? Really useful things, and a lot to keep us busy, I think, in terms of what we need to do. But, you know, talking about neutering cat population management, and I'd just love, Ursula, because you have worked, I don't know how many countries, but it's a lot, isn't it? Lots of, more than 30, did you? Yeah, you need to keep counting because it's, but you will have seen so much in so many different environments. And one of the things is, you know, how have you maintained the sort of sterility, quality, surgical aspects? Because you must be doing things in the field. I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you ask, because it's a question that comes up a lot, and my go-to response is usually that we think of gold standard because maybe gold is shiny, it's beautiful, whatever, that it needs to be costly, but high standard or gold standard does not need to be costly or expensive. And I think that is a misconception that we fight against a lot. Of course, it's fantastic if everything is sterile and from top to bottom and the ceiling has been damp clothed every morning or whatever, that's fine. But especially in trap, neuter, release programs where it is relatively short surgeries, and we have hopefully beautiful nurses who will help us, and or vet techs, or wherever you are in the world, you will have helpers around you who will help you facilitate that to work in a clean and sterile way. But what I usually try to explain is that when we have the cat on the table and the surgery is happening, if you sort of imagine a glass dome, a sort of imaginary glass dome around it, and that is your sacred area, that's where you really want to work clean. That's where you don't pull your suture material needle out across the room, and especially when you have to work with air conditioning, and maybe you have to deal with dust contamination over the surgical side. So there is a lot to consider and to think about. You know, are you working even outside and the wind might blow? Well, is there going to be dust in the air? Or, you know, you work in the monsoon season. What about the contamination rate after the surgery when they are maybe sitting somewhere where it's damp or cold? Then it might be a good or best approach to try the flank approach, where they then don't contaminate their midline wound, etc. So there are different ways that you can really focus on sterility and adapt it to the environment you're working in. And so there are things that you can do without having, none of what I just said is costing any extra money. It's just getting your mindset into, okay, what have we got? What do we have, and how can we make this in the best case scenario? And sometimes we need to have just a shield that takes the dust away. When the wind starts picking up, we are not going to get the wind into the surgical area. But it's not having the perfect overshoes and the sterile gown, but you know, just having this area where the cat actually is, and making sure that the prep is perfect and the aftercare is perfect, and of course staying sterile during surgery, but that doesn't have to be expensive.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And, you know, just amazing how weather comes into contextualised care that I hadn't actually ever thought about. But you know, that monsoon angle. But no, absolutely, it's such a valuable thing to think about. And Alex just, you know, mentioned Ursula talking about the role of vet nurses. You know, if you've got vet nurses out there or vet assistants, etc., and they're interested in helping with supporting TNR, what would your advice be to them?
Yeah, I think some of that will go back to what Lindsay was talking about in her video actually before we came on, with making sure that TNR work has a sort of strategic goal, that there's a strategy in place to make sure that cat population management is effective. So I'd be wanting to do a little bit of sort of research on that, ask questions, find out what they've, whoever's doing it, what they've previously done and how effective that's been. So I'd want to do that first. I'd also want to check what the laws are in that country with regards to doing TNR work, because that can obviously sort of vary between one country to another. And also making sure that even though we need to be really mindful of costs with TNR work, at the end of the day, we need to make sure that the standards are enough that those cats' welfare isn't compromised in any way. So making sure that we have a bare minimum equipment to do the procedure, making sure that the anaesthetic protocols in place are adequate so that those cats are getting adequate analgesia as well. So just making sure that you've checked all those measures before kind of putting yourself forward to do that work, I think can be really useful, so that you don't sort of end up doing it and thinking, oh God, you know, I'm in a situation that I didn't want to be in. Yeah, sort of preparation. And preparation is key, always.
Absolutely, no, brilliant. I'm conscious, I don't know where the time goes. I feel like taking the batteries out of that clock and then we can just go on for a bit longer. But don't worry, I won't, although I'm very tempted. Just in terms of, I'll just come to you, Jo, because this is a sort of bit of a short answer and see how you do with it. If you could speak to cat owners, what would be the one thing you would ask them to do for cat population management?
Well, yeah, literally, I would want them to ask their vets whether they'll consider early neutering. It's as simple as that, really. Really is. Just think about it. Just ask them, have they done it? Will they consider it if they haven't? And start that conversation, really.
Short and sweet, and it's come up throughout the day, hasn't it? Sort of pre-pubertal neutering, early, whatever we want to call it. It means neutering them at an early age before it's absolutely essential, And you probably say the same to the vets as well. If you,
exactly. So, I mean, and if they haven't done it, I'd want them just to find out about it, you know, be inquisitive. But remember, it's not just the vet, it's the nurse. It really is that partnership. If you haven't done it, you'll both have worries about it. You'll have concerns. But chat through it together. You'll find different facts. There's lots of information out there, and it really is safe. We have done thousands of them. And to be honest, it's easier than other types of neutering, really. So, and just keep talking and support each other along that journey, really. No, and I think, Ursula, you were talking about that earlier, weren't you, in terms of a lot of it's from fear. It's not because people are trying to be difficult, it's because they're just not really sure, a bit nervous, and whatever we can do to increase confidence. Right, so in the last 3 minutes, Nat, I'd just love you to come in. Just what does high volume, high quality neutering mean? If you'd like to just give us a definition and your view on it, because we're talking about sort of doing it, the quality side of things. It's a good opportunity to just bring that in quickly.
Yeah, so it kind of is what it says it is, really. It's clinics that specialise in high volume, so large numbers, high quality, good quality neutering, basically, and it's really their focus. I think Stacey said it earlier really, really well when she talked about that importance of growing your neutering capacity in your area. And that really is where these sort of types of clinics, high volume, high quality, really do slot in. They're a way of massively increasing the capacity in a local area for getting both cats and dogs to be neutered quickly. The more they do and the protocols that they use tends to reduce the individual cost of neutering per animal. And so they're really available as a resource for both owned animals where maybe there are cost limitations around the availability of neutering. They meet that need, but also for charitable groups as well. They're, again, for our TNR groups, for our shelters, they're a resource for them to be able to get their animals neutered, usually quite quickly at a good cost as well. So I think they are a really, really good tool to have available in terms of a sort of resource. What was really interesting, though, that came up earlier, and Stacey was mentioning the situation in the States, is the growth of these types of clinics has meant that other types of clinics and our more traditional clinics aren't neutering perhaps as much as what they used to. And so that overall capacity in terms of a neutering resource hasn't necessarily grown the way we would have liked it to with the development of these kind of clinics. So I thought that was really interesting, and it's something that's made me perhaps a little bit nervous that this might be a trend that we do see in other parts of the world as well, that with the growth of these clinics, other types of vet clinics are not necessarily carrying on with their neutering capacity, which is a shame.
No, absolutely. And I think to end the discussion on that, it's a really good point, because I think that's something that sounds like it's just coming into our thought processes. And again, it's about the conversation. Is that really happening? What can we try and do to sort of prevent that? Because, you know, we all can compartmentalize what we do, but there's a need for that everywhere, isn't there? So thank you, Nat. So we have run out of time. A huge thank you to all of the panel members. It's been really nice to have a few of you in the studio, and thank you so much to Nat and Anne over the other side of the world. Thank you so much for joining. It's been brilliant to have you on board. And that's the end of the last panel discussion. But stay tuned. We're going to be back with you in a second, but we're going to move to Vicky first of all for a reflection. And there are some absolutely fantastic videos for you to watch as well before we wrap up. So please stay online. Keep your comments coming in, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
We mustn't forget the essential role that the veterinary team play in cat population management and the care of unowned cats in general. We can't do this without them. We wanted to give vets a voice. What do you know about the challenges they face and what they can do to support cat population management and general access to veterinary care? If you are working in the sector, what's the relationship between you and your vet team? Are you supportive of each other? Could you do more to support them? Do you feel they could support you more? How can you keep that relationship respectful and effective? Take a moment to reflect. Welcome back. Now we have a series of short films to share with you that showcase examples of the great work that is taking place around the world. Firstly, it's my pleasure to introduce Meredith Shear and to welcome back Stacey LeBaron in the USA, talking about the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society's Catmobile programme.
Hi, everybody. Stacey LeBaron here, and I am on the board of the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society, and also some of you may know of me as host of the Community Cats podcast. And I wanted to just share a little bit of information about some of the videos that you're going to see with regards to the Merrimack River Feline Rescue Society's Catmobile program. The Catmobile program is a mobile veterinary clinic specifically designed for cats, and it is able to support anywhere between 25 to 30 or 30 plus cats at any given location, depending on how your recovery is set up. You can do recovery offsite or recovery in the vehicle. We started our Catmobile program in 2008, purchasing our first vehicle. We did have our board of directors reviewed doing possible voucher program, a stationary clinic, or a mobile clinic, and we decided to go with the mobile clinic. One of the reasons being is our headquarters is right out near the edge of the ocean, and so we felt that we needed to have a mobile component to be able to drive communities that needed our services to the greatest possibility, rather than forcing folks to come and drive to be able to get access to spay-neuter services, which we know can drive down cat overpopulation and really serve the needs of the community where cats are so good at overpopulating. Since 2008, we have had 3 Catmobiles in operation, and we have assisted over 75,000 cats, getting them spay-neuter services. The Catmobile does serve cats in traps, owned cats, and cats that are being assisted by rescues, as well as shelters. But I would say a majority of the population of the cats that we assist on the Catmobile is that owned cat population. So just thought I'd give you a little bit about a history with regards to our Catmobile, and enjoy the tour.
Hey there, come on over. We're going to take a little tour. I'm going to show you what we do on the truck and the services we offer. So this is our Catmobile. It is a state-of-the-art mobile surgical unit. We perform low-cost care, spay and neuter services for cats on this vehicle. The vehicle has been in operation since 2008. We have this lovely kennel space where we can accommodate up to 30 patients. This is our surgical prep area. So we have water circulating heating pads for all of our patients to make sure that we're helping support their body temperature. We use an isoflurane anesthesia machine in order to help maintain their plane of anesthesia during procedures. Back here we have our surgical suite. So we have more kennels, and then our surgical suite. So this is where we'll do more of our spays. Again, we have the water circulating heating pad. We have our anesthesia machine. We also have a state-of-the-art oxygen concentrator. This is what supplies our oxygen for us for our anesthesia machine. We do have a backup source of oxygen in our oxygen tanks, but usually the oxygen concentrator is all we need. This vehicle has its own power source, so it does have a generator that can power and operate the entire clinic. In addition, we are able to plug it in on location to supply power to the clinic as well. So we always have a source of power anytime we need it. We have everything you would have in a normal surgical clinic. We have our sterile scrub, we have sterile gloves, sterile surgical packs. We do a surgical prep using chlorhexidine scrub. Everybody also gets a distemper vaccine and a rabies vaccine when they come to our clinic. They get a microchip as well that was donated by the Tufts Cummings Center for us. And everybody gets a topical parasite treatment. So those are all of the things that we offer on our state-of-the-art Catmobile.
Well, Stacy, back here again, now that you've had a nice tour of our Catmobile program, I really hope that you will consider implementing a program in your community if appropriate. We think it's been an incredible solution in helping with the cat situation in Eastern Massachusetts. We have definitely had challenges with regards to a mobile spay-neuter clinic, but our goals are to be fully up and functional as soon as we possibly can to serve as many cats as possible, because access to spay-neuter services and affordable spay-neuter services are really challenging for us right now in Massachusetts. We have been down because we have been short veterinary and technician staff, and we are seeing the impacts of that in our shelters with higher intakes, higher requests for assistance. And so it's critically important that we do bring staff back on board, serving the needs of the community, back serving the needs of cats, and helping anyone who wants access to affordable spay-neuter services for their cats or for their community cats to be able to access that care in Eastern Massachusetts. And we are really very thrilled and happy with this model, but we are extremely challenged with goals going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Stacey and Meredith. I hope you enjoyed that tour and it's fueled some exciting ideas for your community. Our next contributor is Jenny Cottrell, the Policy Officer for the Pet Welfare Foundation, with her cat Bonnie, chatting about the specific challenges in Australia and giving practical tips about planning programmes to support your community, wherever you are.
Hi, my name's Jenny Cottrell. My background is pound and shelter work, animal management, or what you know as animal control work, for over 20 years, and I'm currently working as a policy officer for the Australian Pet Welfare Foundation. In Australia, we do not have TNR programs, as TNR's illegal here, but what we do have are community cat programs. So ultimately, that means taking all the stray cats in our areas and getting them desexed and microchipped to an owner that's primarily the person who's been feeding and caring for them. So a few things that I wanted to highlight, well actually Bonnie and I wanted to highlight, when starting a community cat program, is what, to have a look at what your community really needs. Like, what is it that they don't have access to? Or what is it that they do have access to? And how can you assist them further with their pets? Also, what veterinary capacity have you got in your area to actually assist pet owners? Have you got primarily small veterinary practices that have a slightly limited capacity compared to larger welfare shelters who are already running spay and neuter programs? Who will assist you in the delivery of your program? So think about your collaboration. Who are you going to tie in with? What organisations are you going to utilise volunteers? Or perhaps, tie in with the social services already in the community who are already out speaking to the same people that you need to be speaking to yourself. How will you promote your program? And how will you engage the community? So will you be using social media posts or primarily, or will you be actually, door knocking and, getting out in the streets? And how will you obtain your funding? So the obvious, essential funding, will that be through tapping into an existing resource that you already have for financials, or will that be you might need to go and seek opportunities for grant funding? And where will you go to actually have a look at who provides the grant funding? And another essential for me is data collection. Like, you really need to think about how you're going to record the data for your program, and where are you going to store that? What sort of software are you going to use? Because for any further future funding opportunities, you'll need that data to provide the evidence of how you've actually run your program and what it achieved, and measurable. And all these good planning, if you think about it and plan well from day one, this all equals a sustainable program in the future. So hopefully I've given you something to think about. Thanks.
Thank you, Jenny. What great advice. So much to consider. What does your community need? What do or don't they have access to at the moment? What about veterinary capacity? Who will assist you? How will you promote your programme and engage with your community? What about funding? And of course, don't forget to collect data, so important for future funding. The key message here is plan well from day one for a sustainable programme. Next, we travelled to Sri Lanka to meet Dr. Chamari and the team at the CatStar Clinic, a wonderful pop-up clinic focused on high-quality, high-volume neutering.
Hello, I'm Dr. Chamari. I'm a senior veterinarian in Dog Stop Foundation and also team leader in CatStar Cat Clinic. Our cat clinic was opened in July 2023 with the help of Battersea. This is a dedicated feline-only facility for spaying and neutering. And also, we provide hands-on training for Sri Lankan veterinary professionals in high-quality, high-volume neutering. Since we are opening, we have successfully sterilized over 8,000 cats by September 2025. As a result, we have seen a stable cat population and less dumpings around the area. This would help animal welfare as well as public health concerns. At Cat Clinic, every cat comes for surgery receives both anti-rabies vaccine and tricat vaccine. Combined effects of surgery and vaccination help to reduce population, prevent rabies, and as well as suffering from cat flu. You don't need to have a large space for start a project like this. What we have here is a rental shop unit. Most of the things we are using here are made up locally. Once our team collect cats either from owners or human traffic, they brought cats in a covered cage. This is our cat waiting area. We can accommodate around 10 cats in here. And this is our preparation table. And this is Nandana. He's one of our senior vet assistants there. And he's doing one preparation in this table. This is our surgery area. Today we have a trainee as well. Dr. Nadivisha is doing surgery and our anesthesia assistant is Tisara and all are in-house trained assistant. This is our recovery area and we keep cats until they fully recover and then transfer into cat cages. After they are fully recovered, we offer them food as well. If you are working with a small budget, it's better to neuter fewer cats at a high standard rather than compromise on welfare. Good quality work attracts international funding, and using efficient protocols can also be very cost effective. Finally, invest in your staff training. There are so many online resources, including CPDs and iCatCare and Battersea. We're proud of what CatStar achieved so far, and we expect to do our very best in the future as well. This is our story. We hope this will inspire you to make your own story.
Thank you. What a great point about the importance of high standards and promoting good welfare for the cats in any neutering programme. You've now seen 2 examples of how clinics can be set up to provide these essential services. The first, a mobile clinic, and this, a purpose-built unit. Now let's shift the emphasis slightly and focus on ideas for private vet clinics to provide affordable neutering services to owners and how that might be funded. Let's hear from Anne Enright, who you met earlier in our last panel discussion, talking about the Spay It Forward initiative.
My name is Dr. Anne Enright. I'd like to talk about how you can ensure your services are accessible to your wider local community and talk about a concept that I often call Spay It Forward. You might have come across this idea before, maybe under a different name. It's becoming more popular and has been showing up in lots of different places and lots of different examples lately. As an example, some cafes that you buy an extra coffee or a meal voucher for someone else to use later on. Or you might see community food pantries where people can take what they need. Those are just a couple of examples, and you may know of others in your community. Paying it forward is a great practice, and it can be applied in many different settings, including shelters, community clinics, or private clinics. The idea is simple. It helps clinics support people who might not otherwise be able to access veterinary care. That could mean sterilisation, vaccination, microchipping, or other treatments. But when I talk about pay it forward, I'm specifically focusing on sterilisation. Some ideas that I have used in the past to gather resources to pay forward include donation boxes at reception or a donation account, sponsoring name plaques on shelter cages, benches or bricks in a wall, gift vouchers covering a spay or neuter surgery or fundraising events. At different times, some of our local municipalities have subsidised surgery costs to help with tackling the root cause of overpopulation. At one of our shelter fetes, we had a plain wall we decided to upgrade to a mural where children could leave a painted handprint with their name for a coin donation. It was a huge success. That wall alone raised over $1,000 in a single day as people were donating more than the nominated fee, and we gained a creative mural as well. Often school or youth groups will offer to raise money for a cause, of which a community clinic is a great cause. Consider a barbecue or sausage sizzle at a popular retail outlet. Some corporations or municipalities will provide funding or resources in return for website acknowledgement. Some organisations use volunteers to collect recyclable items, as an example, plastic, glass or aluminium that have a refund value, which has the added bonus of keeping the environment clean. Again, these sorts of activities will appeal to the community's social conscience. Another benefit I've seen is how much goodwill these programs create. People want to help the community that they live in. Clients love supporting clinics that share their values. It builds loyalty, attracts volunteers, and strengthens community connections. Essentially, people want to help the community that they live in.
Thank you, Anne. I hope this has given you some ideas. If you work in a private clinic, is this something you might consider? Now we meet Ellen Markinchevich and Teresa Maniti in Australia, talking about Teresa's journey to founding the Wyndham Community Vet, providing affordable cat care for the local community, focusing on low-cost neutering. Let's hear her story.
Hi, I'm Ellen Martinkovich. I'm one of the vets at Wyndham Community Vet, and I'm here with owner and founder Teresa Maniti. So she's started Wyndham Community Vet to provide affordable vet care to the local area, with a focus on low-cost spay-neuter, high-quality, high-volume spay-neuter. She also runs Give a Kitty a Home, which is a rehoming charity for cats in need. Teresa, do you want to tell me a little bit about why you started Wyndham Community Vet and why you thought this was such an important thing to do?
Yeah, sure. It all came from when I did start the rescue and I saw how many cats there really were that were homeless, being impounded, euthanized, just because there weren't enough homes to put them in. And I figured that the main reason for that was because de-sexing just wasn't affordable for a lot of people. So pet owners just were not de-sexing their cats mostly, and it really has created a problem. So it was my mission to open a vet clinic, which I was able to do with the help of the VicGov, and offer affordable de-sexing in particular.
Could you tell me a little bit more about how you worked with the government to get funding and how you made that work?
Mm-hmm. So VicGov opened up a pet rehoming grant where they basically had openings for funding to open a new low-cost vet clinic. So I applied and I was successful.
Amazing. Congratulations and amazing effort. But I think that's just really inspiring for people to reach out to the local government, local council, other, bigger rehoming organisations as well to see if there are any grants and funding available.
Opening the clinic, we have de-sexed within about 2 years about 5,000 animals.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
That made big impact, and potentially 5,000 animals belonging to people who otherwise may not have been able to afford it.
Definitely, yeah. Being able to reach that demographic of people, right, that support is really incredible. Exactly. And I think something all clinics can benefit from that community engagement in that way as well, and offering lower prices, even if that's a short campaign. When you look for government funding, working with other rehoming organisations, sometimes they will be able to fundraise to, offer look desexing campaigns and things like that. So, do you think that's really important?
I think it's a very, very responsible decision. And if more vet clinics could adopt at least low-cost desexing within their establishment, we would see where that's been tonight.
Definitely.
Thank you, Teresa and Ellen. How inspiring to hear from someone who has identified a problem situation within her community and found a solution that is having such an enormous impact. And finally, we meet Bethan and Titi, working in Indonesia, telling us about the clients they work with and how their tiered pricing structure enables them to provide accessible veterinary care and support their local cat population management.
Hi, my name is Bethan. I'm from England. I'm a veterinary nurse and I've been clinic manager for Luni for about 6 months now.
My name is Titi. I'm a vet in Luni Lombok. Yeah. I'm working here already 3 years.
So Luni as an organisation is a yayasan, which in Indonesian is pretty much the same as like a charity. So how it works here is we have Western people with pet cats that usually pay like a full price for treatment. We then have local people that usually pay discount up to cost price for pet cats. And then for Australian homeless cats, the treatment from the pet cats then goes to fund towards the treatment for them, if that makes sense. So yeah, we have 2 clinics. One is located in Gili Trawangan, and that's like kind of our biggest clinic where we have diagnostics, we have ultrasound machine, x-ray machine, blood machines as well. We can do biochemistry. And then we also have another clinic in Gili Air, which is more for routine consultations and sterilisation. So controlling the cat population on the 3 Gili Islands, we usually run TNR clinics in each Gili Island twice a year. And we also do pop-up clinics. We do spay days once a week in Gili T and once every 2 weeks in Gili Air to kind of just keep control of the cat populations. And our feeding team as well go around the islands feeding all of the cats and kind of like check the breeding hotspots and for any sick cats that then they bring back to the clinic for sterilisation or treatment. Most of the challenges that we face with TNRs are kind of trying to get the local people to understand and bring their cats to us. So a lot of what Luni is doing is kind of trying to teach the local people the importance of sterilisation, vaccination, deworming, and yeah, over time it's starting to get better, sterilising more cats. So yeah, usually it's like if like a local person doesn't agree to sterilise, we say, look, maybe we'll take 1 cat and then we'll see how it goes, and then bring the cat back to them. They see that it's healthy, and then we can convince them to bring the rest of the cats to us.
Thank you, Bethan and Titi. Great to hear about their role in cat population management, and I love their way of engaging the local population and how they overcome resistance in a really respectable and effective way. And thank you once again to all our contributors. Back live to the studio.
We are back again. Thank you for those of you that are still with us and participating. This is the end of iCatConnect 2025. We've been, over the last 25 minutes, while those videos have been playing, we've been looking at the chat and the messages, and thank you so much for the engagement that you've had. It's been absolutely amazing. It's been a really fantastic day. Your panel sessions were terrific, Sev. Really like the engagement again. It was so passionate, the thoughts that were coming through, and the panelists as well. It was really fantastic. And Vicky, Nice to be seeing you here in real life. I only saw you on the screen just a few minutes ago. Thoughts for today, like what, it's been an amazing day. And so I just kind of wondered what your thoughts were, your reflections, any big takeaways from today?
Wow, it's been such a good day, And I think in between the panel discussion and everything, I've been on the chat, watching the chat happening. And I think for me, we've had all the wonderful experts in our panelists. And, I've learnt so much. And also I've learnt from the chat. It was like having 300 panelists. It was absolutely fantastic. The engagement, the support for each other, the hints and tips. Absolutely amazing. And I think these events are made not just by the people who've been on the panel and your good selves doing an amazing job, but from the people who come and join in. It's just been amazing. There's an awful lot of brilliant people out there doing amazing work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's like that hive mind, isn't it? Yes. There's so much information out there. And, this is for the Unowned Cat community, so it's so wonderful that they're so big a part of it and engaging so well. What about you, Sev? What are the takeaways for you?
It's hard, isn't it, to pick? I mean, I think it is the sort of community feel and the sort of the individual things that come in, but the commonalities that are there. I've learned a huge amount as well, and I'm just in awe of what everyone is doing on a daily basis. The videos have been fantastic. Like Vicky said, the chat, just reading individual things that in individual countries, and just being able to share that and just think of some different ways that we might be able to approach things. That's what this is all about, So it's the end of today, but it's the start of carrying on with that community, I hope. So, a huge thank you to everyone involved.
Yeah, I love that, the start of the next step. Yeah, for me, I think it was the same thing. We've been talking about what this event might be, but really it is just, we all work in isolation sometimes, or at least feels that way. And knowing that there's a community out there and knowing that everybody's participating. And, as much as we have maybe different ideas about things, what became so clear through the panels, through the engagement, through what everybody was saying, is there's so much more that unites us than separates us. And, going back to, the messages that we had, it's about collaboration and working together, and we're just united in all the things that we want to do, and it's just been really fantastic day all round, I think. Sev, there is a poll that I want to ask you about, so please tell us.
To our viewers, absolutely. So there is a poll that is being posted, I hope, as I speak, just about what you're taking from today. So just a real plea, please respond to that poll, because it's really important for us to be able to sort of understand the difference, the potential difference that we can make with these sorts of events. So really encourage you. I know there's a lot of polls and a lot of surveys out there, but please just spend a few seconds completing that for us, because that would be much appreciated. So thank you.
Great stuff. Last little bit of final housekeeping. So we've had a lot of questions. Are you going to be able, this is a live stream at the moment. What about the recorded version of this? So once this live stream ends, the same link that you used, you're going to be able to watch this all over again as many times as you want. The chat will exist in perpetuity there. If you signed up to the Unowned Cat newsletter, please do if you haven't already. But if you sign up to the Unowned Cat newsletter, the edited version of this, so segments, and you can watch all the different sections rather than it be one long continuous thing, you'll get notification of that in the next Unowned Cat newsletter. But immediately that this stops going live, you'll be able to rewatch your favorite moments with all of us and all of the other videos that were there. The other thing is, and this was mentioned before, a lot of questions, a lot of comments came in. We didn't get to even half of them. So all of those will be answered again in the next Unowned Cat newsletter. So please sign up for that if you haven't already. And then lastly, you probably have already, but please check out the iCatCare website. Check out our social media if you haven't done so already, and keep in touch. And really it's just time to say thank you to everybody. So firstly, thank you to the iCatCare team here in the room, the guys outside, everybody that put this together, the entire iCatCare team. I'd like to thank the production team, the guys behind the camera and the microphones here, who really helped put all of this together. couldn't have gone more smoothly. The panelists, both in person and the guys on Zoom around the world, thank you so much for your involvement. Thank you so much for participating in this. And most of all, thank you guys out there on the other side of this camera, the ones that have been watching this. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the passion that you have shown. Thank you for participating, being part of this Unowned Cat community. As we said earlier, you are the people that we do this for. This event is for you, and you inspire us, and we love working with you guys. So that's it for iCatConnect 2025. I hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you all next time.